So hello, everyone, and welcome to the Urban Connections Wilderness Youth Engagement Kickoff. My name is Jesse Scott. I am the Urban Connections Coordinator in Boston, and I will be your facilitator for today's meeting. We're very excited to have you all join us today. On the screen, you will see some suggestions for today's call. As we begin, if you haven't already done so, please put your name, organization, position, and where you're located in the chat. And please be sure to mute your connection. Now, I would like to invite Gina Owens, Regional Forester for the Eastern Region of the U.S. Forest Service, to provide welcoming remarks. Gina.
Thanks, Jesse. Hey, everybody. It's great to be here today. I just want to say welcome and thank you for being here and for the work that you do connecting youth to wild places. I know that there's a lot of talk about wilderness and what wilderness means, and there's some official congressionally designated wilderness areas, and then there's just the wilderness of your backyard. And that's, I grew up in the wilderness of my own backyard. And so grew a love of natural places by just playing more locally. So I appreciate what all you do for connecting youth to wild places and for your partnerships, which help the Forest Service and, really connect with communities that have historically been very underrepresented in this agency. And we've got some real work to do there. So the organizations that you are here representing have a large reach into communities that in the past have really been beyond the Forest Service's scope of engagement. And that's been a challenge for us. Communities that haven't historically been included in public land decisions, but thanks to you can be at this point. Your organizations have a power to really change the future of land conservation by bringing more voices to an ongoing conversation about what it means to steward wild places. We're honored to be included in these efforts and to support our shared vision of what an inclusive outdoors really looks like. So really exciting time for all of us, I think. So, your efforts to introduce underrepresented youth to the natural world around them has a profound impact. And I'm sure all of you know that. That's why you're doing the work that you're doing. We believe that youth that connect to the natural world are inspired to be part of protecting and caring for green spaces from their local parks to congressionally designated Big W wilderness areas. The youth you engage have the opportunity to develop skills and qualities that can support a lifelong passion for the outdoors and skills for recreating safely and sustainably, but they can also build confidence and leadership for championing future stewardship. And so I think what's really cool is all of you are molding the conservation stewardship people of the future. And that's just super exciting. So we recognize that our partnerships are more than an opportunity to change how urban communities view their natural world. Honestly, I think the Forest Service has more to gain from all of you than we have to offer you. This is an opportunity for me and for all of us at the Forest Service to change how we approach equitable access. We couldn't possibly connect to the thousands of urbanites that we're connecting with without all of you. So those connections are going to help us gain a better understanding of how to provide better access to communities that have been historically underrepresented in land management. I think we have so much to learn about what are the barriers and what are the successful ways to work together to bring more people to the conservation conversation. So your willingness to collaborate with us when we're engaging this next generation of land stewards is without a doubt going to change our agency for the better, and I hope it changes all of us collectively for the better. So today, the outdoor community, even the Forest Service itself, does not accurately represent the diversity of this nation. It just doesn't. And we have a long way to go there. But together, we have the opportunity to change that. So I'm hopeful that today we're going to enjoy learning more about, you'll enjoy learning about us, the Forest Service, and the efforts that we're making as an agency to be more inclusive. And I know I'm really looking forward to listening to all of you and what you're doing to bring more inclusion to outdoor spaces. And so on behalf of the entire Forest Service team here, I just want to say thank you so much for you showing up, being a part of today's conversation, and together let's do great, awesome things in inclusivity and the outdoors. Thank you all for being here.
So thank you, Gina. And now we're going to play a short video about the Forest Service.
Hello, my name is Barney Gant. I'm a Deputy Regional Forester located in the Pacific Southwest region of the Forest Service, also known as Region 5. The Forest Service is a diverse organization of over 30,000 people responsible for managing 193 million acres of public land spread across the United States from Puerto Rico to Alaska. The lands we manage are incredibly diverse, from the rainforests in the Pacific Northwest to the arid Southwest to the tall grass prairies. Our jobs are as diverse as the landscapes we manage, but every one of them contributes to fulfilling the mission of the Forest Service. Many of us have wondered how we fit into the Forest Service and how our jobs contribute to the agency mission. Let's meet a few of the fantastic men and women who work very hard in support of this mission.
My name is Richard Gonzalez, and I manage for healthy, sustainable forests and to keep forested lands forested.
My name is Tanya Wilkinson. I work at the Albuquerque Service Center Budget and Finance offices. I supervise a team of budget analysts that serve as liaisons to our budget partners across all regions, stations, and areas.
My name is Mike Mascarenis. My duties include patrolling National Forest lands, investigating any resource damage, protecting the public, employees, and natural resources.
My name is Erwin Chambliss, and I help people identify invasive plants in the southeastern United States.
I'm Danelle D. Harrison, and I'm responsible for the management of 560,000 acres of National Forest System lands. I do this in collaboration with partners and stakeholders, as well as other Forest Service employees.
I am Ivan Gonzalez. I support the Forest Service in its communications efforts through network, computers, and telecoms, and radios.
I'm Susan Alden Weingart, and I have an awesome job. I get the great pleasure of working with all kinds of people across communities and landscapes to introduce our young people to the great outdoors.
My name is Linda Joyce, and I work at the Rocky Mountain Research Station in Fort Collins, Colorado. And my research focuses on quantifying the effects of climate change on ecosystems and natural resources.
The Forest Service employs thousands of people who work behind the scenes as well as directly implementing projects in the field. Our connections are much deeper than what we see at the surface. Each of us contributes in our own way to sustaining our nation's forests and grasslands, delivering benefits to the public, helping the global natural resource community make better management decisions, and making the Forest Service a high-performing agency. It takes all of us in all of our jobs for the Forest Service to succeed in its mission.
So thank you. And Lisa, if you have the link to that video, would you post that in the chat in case anyone would like to see the entire video? There's another almost 4 minutes of that video that we did not share. So next on the agenda to share with you the fundamentals of the Forest Service and the programs we hope to share is Patty Dyken. Patty.
Thank you, Jesse, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. My name is Patty Dyken, and I am the Program Specialist for Work Environment serving the Eastern region of the Forest Service. And I'm going to share a little bit about some of the work that we're doing as an agency and some of the work specifically in diversity, inclusion, and equity. So the Forest Service seeks to be a welcoming and inclusive organization, responsive for all of our constituents by utilizing our motto, caring for the land and serving the people. And over the last several years, the Forest Service has been on a learning and discovery journey to become a values-based, purpose-driven, and relationship-focused organization. These principles are also known as This Is Who We Are, and they were built with significant input from thousands of people, internal and external to the agency, including the workforce, partners, and people that we serve. This input has underscored what has always made the Forest Service unique in the contributions we make to the people, communities, including our state, tribal, and local partners, and the country that we serve. Our agency's purpose and values are really at the heart of this identity work, along with how we can build relationships that are essential to being good neighbors and to advancing our missions to all areas, landscapes, and communities in this nation. It helps all of us show up both with our colleagues and the communities that authentically and effectively reflect of who we are. So this visual here in the slide is all of the principles of This Is Who We Are that are really about our core of an identity of us as an agency, really our mission, purpose, and value, our agency's core values, our agency's voice, how we are experienced, the story of conservation and our place in it. The Forest Service has a very unique land management mission and a very unique history that we utilize the lands in different ways and aspects. Our dynamic tensions, our leader stance and habits, and our code and commitments. Next slide, Lisa. Thank you. This past year, we have been really focusing this work internally with our 30,000 strong workforce and engaging our employees through dialogue and discovery of our agency's core values and code and commitments. Our core values are what we believe as an agency and helps guide in our decision-making, articulate and share the big why, and gives us much more opportunities to share our story and make more values-based connections. Our agency's core values are service, interdependence, safety, diversity, and conservation. And these are what we believe that help guide us as an organization. Next slide, Lisa. Thank you. Our code and commitments are how we show up in carrying out our agency's core values and our mission. Our code is grounded in our core values, and we live them by treating everyone with respect, empowering one another, investing in relationships, modeling integrity, protecting one another, and learning from our mistakes. These are how we not only carry out our mission, but how we build trust, much needed trust, and able to enhance our mission with each other as Forest Service employees and with the partners in the public that we serve. So everyone can expect to know what we're about and trust that we're going to show up in a way that are consistent with our agency's core values and our code and commitments. Next slide, Lisa. A lot of the work that we're doing and as the Forest Service is working to embed and operationalize This Is Who We Are and this identity of sharing about what we're about. We historically as an agency haven't done, honestly, a great job of really expanding and showing and sharing our story externally. And so a lot of this work starts internally. We really are spending this past few years, and especially this year, with embedding this within our internal workforce. So sharing an experience with our current and future employees around how they connect to our mission, purpose, and value, like we saw in the video, and how they really conceive their work through the agency's core values and the code and commitments, to know perspectives from their backgrounds, from the very unique work that they do, whether they're a research scientist or a forester or a wildland firefighter, or they're a botanist or ecologist, or whatever the work they do as part of this agency, they're able to see not only how it fits in the large structure of this very fascinating and complicated mission of this organization, but it also provides a freedom of movement of individuality. And for all of us as individual Forest Service employees to celebrate our experiences and what we also uniquely bring to the table in our own diversity within this workforce. Because the more we celebrate that and we're proud of that internally to the workforce, we're able to engage and reach out to partners like all of you to really think outside of our boxes and think, how can we enhance this and bring more and more diverse people into the conversation? The conservation conversation, like Gina said, I love that. So these are just some of the work that we're doing. Like I said, the employee experience and dialogues we're doing across the agency right now, and providing the work environment performance office is providing tools and resources for our employees to not only have these dialogues and these connections internally for us as peers in the workforce, but also externally with our partners, and understanding that there's so much more room for growth in our enhancing our mission. And adding the principles of This Is Who We Are in job announcements and values-based outreach, really expanding our perspectives of how we do our outreach with not only employment with Forest Service employees, but also partnerships and who we choose to engage with and be curious about, and how we think could help us be more diverse in our mission delivery. And really focusing on being more intentional with our culture, our agency's culture around bringing in new employees, setting a very clear stance and an understanding of the culture they're a part of and how they can contribute and continue to diversify that. Working on more and more training, not only for our internal employees, but also external, bringing our partners and our contractors and our permittee holders and all sorts of different groups of people in training, in dialogues like we're doing today. We're adding these principles and this verbiage of our agency's values and our code and commitments within our grants and agreements, our partnership agreements, permittees, service contracts, and community outreach, to really say that yes, we're entering in an agreement, we're collaborating and being interdependent on each other, and we want to make sure that we have our set collect of goals, of common goals, and that we're complementing each other's core values and we're finding those common grounds, because we're only stronger when we're together. And as far as the workforce, putting This Is Who We Are in our systems, all Forest Service employees now this past fiscal year have now had the verbiage of our agency's core values and our code and commitments infused into our performance elements, that every single Forest Service employee is being asked, to demonstrate these and being asked to show up in a way that is consistent of that. So we're really building on a very strong culture as an organization, and the stronger we build that internally, the stronger we're going to be able to reach that globally, externally as well. Next slide, Lisa, thank you. So the Forest Service Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion branch of the Office of Civil Rights engages consistently with external partners to further enhance our mission, to epitomize our motto, complement our values, and support our code and commitments. And we do that with so many different ways, but some of those high points are connecting, making that connection of ordinary Americans, particularly underrepresented minority groups, to the land, to the Forest Service, and the efforts aimed at conserving our natural resources. Our dedication to service describes our commitment to the American people, all walks of life, and all different landscapes. And the outreach efforts create the awareness and appreciation of the Forest Service programs and activities. That's a lot of work that Urban Connections do, a lot of the work that all those different programs as well into the Diversity Inclusion branch of Office of Civil Rights do, is to really expand the knowledge and the capabilities of these programs. Recognizing the need of interdependence and how effective that is between our agency and the people and communities that we serve, working in collaboration with our communities and partners. And a lot of that collaboration that I'm going to kind of share is through universities and colleges and schools, and really reaching our youth earlier and earlier to really broaden those aspects of, you know, that curiosity of natural resources and those experiences that some of our youth in our country may never have had otherwise the chance to experience. And respect for diversity, including the people and communities which we engage, the culture specifically, perspectives, ideas, experiences they embody, and what they can bring to the table to really improve our perspectives and broaden our perspectives of diversity in cultures within our own nation and within our own landscapes. Access. Access is a big piece that we're really focusing on internally in this organization, of the accesses to resources and experiences that promote economic, ecological, and social vitality. There's always a little bit of a barrier between all of those different resources and programs that we offer versus getting them to the people and letting those people that really need them and can utilize them know. And that's always a barrier that we're working towards improving. And the Office of Civil Rights is doing an amazing job of making some strides and some traction in that. And next slide. So some of these may be a little small in review, but this is just a little snapshot of some of the programs that the Office of Civil Rights and Diversity, Equity, Inclusion branch are working on and have worked historically with partnerships. And the ones on the side with the blue are all external partnerships. Most of them are through universities and colleges in different landscapes with different programs of minority groups, including, you know, Hispanic Americans, African Americans, Native American groups, and some really great and robust work goes on with partnerships of these universities to provide not only the knowledge to know that these resources and these programs are available, but to provide the workshops and help the youth and help these members do the, you know, get through the red tape, get through, you know, how do you sign up for these? How do you apply for these programs? How are you supported in that? What are they entailed? And what is the path with that? And it's really, we've really been focusing on the past few years of what is our follow through with all of these programs that we have with resource assistance programs and youth conservation corps and student conservation associations. You know, what is the career path? How can we continue to support these youths to keep them engaged in conservation, whether that's the Forest Service or any other land management agency, state or federal or local, and keep them engaged. And so that's another layer of that support that we've really been working on. So a lot of stuff there, but a lot of workshops and recruitment efforts and the disconnects. There's a big disconnect in recruiting minorities and in natural resources. And so we're really spending some time with our universities to gather some of that data to do better and reach all aspects of that. And of course, all of these outreach efforts really enhance and really correlate with our agency's core values and our code and commitments. And the other examples that are more a year-over-year frequent programs that we have and that we enter into in the Forest Service is we have our Youth Conservation Corps that is meant for high schoolers. We have our Greening Youth Foundation, Student Conservation Association. I think we have representatives here with us today. 1890 Scholars, Thurgood Marshall College Funds. Our Job Corps program is an amazing resource and program that we are in partnership with Department of Labor on. So in ending, to wrap all of this up, we have a lot of work that we're doing in broadening our diversity and really providing not only the access, but the knowledge of what these resources and opportunities are available to our youth, and really doing our work to expand these to share and be more overt about that. So we're continuing to get more and more applicants, more and more youth in these programs, and how that is going to be a benefit in the future. So we're bringing in the most diverse future in conservation. So thank you for your time today. I really appreciate being here. Looking forward to the rest of the presentation, and I will hand it back over to Jesse. Thank you very much, everyone.
And thank you so much, Patty. Next, we would like to hear from you, our partners, about how this opportunity for a new or expanded partnership with the Forest Service has given you the opportunity to expand on your programming, or maybe try something new that you've wanted to do. So unfortunately, because of time constraints, we're not going to be able to hear from everyone. So if you would like, I'd invite you to share your response in the chat. And for a few of you who would like to speak, and I do invite you to speak, please raise your hand and we'll try to call on as many as we can. And I see the first person I see in the participants list looks like Chris Jackson. You would unmute yourself and go right ahead.
Right. Hello, everyone. I am Chris Jackson, logging in from Detroit here. And I guess to speak directly to that question, how being involved with Urban Connections has kind of allowed us to go deeper into some things or do some things that we haven't done. Recently, well, maybe to give it a little background, I work with Detroit Outdoors, and I also work with an organization called Black to the Land. During COVID, my work through Black to the Land, we were able to put family-based programming together, or pod-based programming before pod-based was even quoted as pod-based, where we led trips out kayaking and hiking. Through some of those things, we started an urban forest school to specifically engage family and little ones. Now, fast forwarding, we recently had the opportunity to go to Clear Lake Education Center, and we took a group of teens and college students as well as younger people. And it was a great experience. We built it as a Black and Indigenous retreat. So while there, we were able to have one of the Indigenous instructors lead a group in birch bark harvesting and spruce root harvesting. We built birch bark baskets. We also had some Indigenous instructors come out and lead some discussions around the fire, dealing with treaty rights and land usage with some of the teens as well. To quote one of the teens, and ironically my daughter, because some of the program was structured and some was very free flowing. But in her recap, she said it was those unstructured moments that allowed the teens to kind of bond with each other and engage in the space was most meaningful to her. And in part of her reflection, she stated while being there, she learned not to worry more so, much about the past or the future, but to more so be in the present and, really engaging and being focused in the moment. And that sentiment was reflected by a few other youth as well. But for me, getting them up there, being able to unplug from the urban environment, the urban haze, the cell phones and that sort of thing, and really absorb nature was really the jewel. So, and I thank Urban Connections for that opportunity to lead youth there, and look forward to future things and leading more youth to these, natural environments to engage and connect.
So thank you so much. Next, I see Maria Adams Lawson. Please unmute. Go right ahead.
Hello, I'm Mariah Adams Lawton, and I am calling from the beautiful island of Martha's Vineyard, Jesse. So we're right down below you. I happen to be on vacation this week, but I'm from Healthy Kids Inc. in Detroit, and the urban program has allowed Healthy Kids to take African American teenagers, ages 14 to 19, this summer for 5 weeks up to the Manistee Forest, which is located on the west side of our state. And the youth had an opportunity to participate in hiking at the Norhouse Trail, all the way to Lake Michigan. They camped, they hiked, they swam in Lake Michigan. They did some tree identification projects that they were working on, and they were able to do like wilderness games at night up there in the Manistee Forest. Of course, the kids had a ball. They didn't even want to come home. They wanted to stay. We took groups of 10 up because of COVID. We had to keep them spaced apart. And the kids would actually almost duke it out to go back up there and to do the activities they were exposed to. And we have a younger group of kids here, at the camp. It's called What's Good in My Hood Outdoor Adventure Camp. And those same kids were able to bring back to the younger kids, which are 3 years old all the way up to 12 years old, things that they did, and they participated and came up with activities that they could do right in our park area at our center. So this, the funding and the program and the things that we were able to access this summer has brought just a totally, we're on another level now. So next summer, we got even more stuff planned, and I'm allowing the kids to do it. They want to we're actually doing a project over in Idlewild also, but they want a place where they can stay there all summer and maybe work for the forestry department or the Department of Natural Resources, to live up there. Some of them want to stay year round. So I think I got like 3 teenage boys that are like 18 and 19 who may not attend college for whatever reasons, that are very interested in continuing what we are doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And the last person I'll call on is Mark E.
Hi, everybody. It's really inspiring to hear what you're up to. I'm calling from Boulder, Colorado, where I work with the Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics, and we have a new assistance partnership with the Forest Service and this Urban Connections program. So because Leave No Trace is a national education organization, I just want to invite you all to reach out to us with insights about what kind of education materials we can provide. We are working with the Urban Connections staff, and we'll be through next year as well. And in 22, we'll also be sending our traveling trainers teams to some of the locations to actually interact in the field with your staffs and with your participants. So we're really excited about developing those resources. Would love to hear from you about maybe gaps that we could help fill. We have several professional members of our education team getting ready to really dig into the types of things that we can provide and bring some Leave No Trace into what you're already doing, which sounds tremendous. It's mark@lnt.org, as I put in the chat. And LNT.org is also our website where you can see some of the existing educational materials and let us know what you think about them. So thanks for letting us be involved.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And time actually allows us to have one more. So looks like the only other hand I see up at the moment is Willie T. So I will turn it over to you.
Cool. Thanks, Jesse. I am, my name is Willie Tully. I work for Wilderness Inquiry in the Twin Cities of Minnesota, and we're really grateful to be on the call with everyone and thankful for the convening. And we've had the honor of working with the esteemed Terry Heyer for many years, leading Forest Service trips here locally for Twin Cities use to the Chippewa National Forest and Superior National Forest, as well as to the Boundary Waters. And, I think one of the things that we really appreciate is the sort of rounded nature of those trips. We worked with Terry a lot on both introduction, not only the outdoor experiences, but also introduction to careers through the Forest Service, and we do college visits on those trips as well. And we're excited over the next 3 years with some of the new funding and support to expand our canoe-mobile program. Our canoe-mobile program is our introductory program in urban areas to cities across Region 9. So Detroit and Chicago, work with Indiana Dunes, Boston, as well as the Twin Cities. And really, for us, that program is about, planting those seeds for connecting kids to the outdoors. But we're also excited then to, build out through that and think about, taking those same kids on extended trips to wilderness areas, close to home. And I think the opportunity to do both that, we call it our pyramid of engagement, but that's not unique to us, but really thinking about kind of those repeating and reinforcing experiences for youth that can provide both that introduction, but then, more immersion. And the Forest Service has been one of our closest partners in doing that. And we're really looking forward to, deepening and expanding that work over the next 3 years. So thanks to everyone on the call for partnering in that regard.
Awesome, thank you. And thank you everyone for sharing and for that rich conversation. We invite you to share additional comments because I know there's a lot more work going on. We don't even know if we touched or scratched the surface on that one. But we also invite you to share those additional comments. If you'd like to email those, you can email those to Nick Pardee. And I will call on Lisa to put that email address in the chat, if you would, please, so that everyone can have that. And of course, you also have direct contact with your various Urban Connections coordinators. So we'd love to hear more about the work that you're doing. Next on the agenda to share with you about our public lands and wilderness areas and how to enjoy and care for them is John Thompson, Wilderness Manager for the Eastern Region. John, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Jesse. Good afternoon. I'm John Thompson, Region 9 Wilderness, Wild and Scenic Rivers Program Manager for the Eastern Region of the USDA Forest Service. Welcome to the kickoff event. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your work with youth and young adults. The Eastern Region is situated within a network of historical and contemporary relationships with Native American tribes and communities. The areas where I work and live are on the traditional homelands of the people of the Council of Three Fires, the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Odawa nations. The lands that encompass 55 wilderness areas across 15 national forests and grasslands that make up the Eastern Region of the National Forest System. We're home to trade, travel, gathering, and stewardship of the land for 89 federally recognized tribes, and is still home to hundreds of thousands of tribal members between Minnesota, Missouri, and Maine. How are we doing, Jesse? Can you see the PowerPoint?
Actually, no, I cannot.
Okay. I'm not sharing my screen. I just assumed it was up.
We saw it at the beginning, John, or at least I did, but then it disappeared.
Hold up just a second, you guys. I'm trying technical difficulties.
No problem. All right.
Sorry, keep going. Hold up just a second. Almost there. You're on your second screen, is that right, John?
Great, yeah. Thank you. So yeah, that was my first attempt at a land acknowledgement, and consistent with Forest Service's values of service, interdependence, conservation, diversity, and safety. The Eastern Region and tribal partners continue to build consultative and collaborative relationships through new policy and direction. All right, next slide. All right. Does anyone recognize these two? Yes, it's Teddy Roosevelt and John Muir. Nice. Stalwarts of conservation and preservation, respectively. On March 14th, 1903, Theodore Roosevelt wrote a personal letter to John Muir, asking Muir to take him through Yosemite. He noted, "I do not want anyone with me but you, and I want to drop politics absolutely for 4 days and just be out in the open with you." Roosevelt had read some of Muir's writings in which he explained how the wild forests were vanishing as ranchers and developers destroyed the wilderness for their own profit. Again, the photo is a good representation of the ongoing debate of conservation versus preservation. So how did we get here? I'll take you on a quick wilderness journey. Here's an outline of what we will cover. A look at the rapid Western expansion in the 1800s that highlighted the need for forest management and the establishment of the Forest Service. We'll meet a few conservation leaders and the organization of the Forest Service. We'll finish with collaboration and our engagement with youth from your organizations. The 1862 Homestead Act allowed purchase of 160 acres at $1.25 an acre. To make way for the homesteaders, the federal government forced Native American tribes off of their ancestral lands and onto reservations. Promontory Point, Utah. In 1869, the Golden Spike brought together the Western and Eastern rails. 20,000 workers, including 15,000 immigrants, helped complete the Transcontinental Railroad. Throughout the 19th century, the expanding U.S. timber industry pushed logging westward. By the turn of the century, stand by as I mute a pop-up bubble here. By the turn of the 20th century, the Great Lakes states were being stripped of their old growth forests and practices best described as cut and run. One consequence, there are limited areas that have 100-year-old forests in the eastern region, which is still young by forestry standards. Many stands have already been cut once or twice, so they're even younger. A homogeneous forest is often the result of previous practices, making the forest vulnerable. The rapid expansion west gave birth to the idea of a national forest system. The need to protect timber, water quality, and access to forest resources was paramount. In 1891, President Harrison established the Yellowstone Park Timberland Reserve. The first forest reserve, it became the Shoshone National Forest in 1908. The presidential proclamation gave authority to the president to establish reserves. 6 years later, Congress passed the 1897 Organic Act, specifically stated the purpose of the reserves was to protect and manage the timber, water, and forage. Transfer Act established national forests in the Department of Agriculture. Many interest groups were outraged and wanted to starve the budget of the Forest Service out of existence. The 1910 fires in the Western United States helped to solidify the worth of the agency. Gifford Pinchot was the first chief of the Forest Service. Pinchot believed in the utilitarian philosophy of the greatest good for the greatest number, and added the phrase "in the long run" to emphasize that forest management consists of long-term decisions. Roosevelt, the conservation president, and Gifford Pinchot established 150 national forests, quadrupling protected federal lands to 172 million acres. You can move ahead 2 slides. So we're back to this photo of Roosevelt, the conservation president, with the father of the national parks in 1903. And I put air quotes over father to remind us that there are many narratives to our conservation legacy. The Forest Service embraces a learning culture and recognizes the path to preservation, conservation, stewardship, and land management has not always been maintained to standard. Next slide. As we heard previously, employees of the Forest Service believe in service to each other, to the public, and to the planet. Interdependence of all things, people and nature, communities, colleagues, past, present, and future. Conservation, wise management for multiple use. Diversity of people and cultures, perspective and ideas, experiences and ecosystems. And finally, safety. Safety for all. Safety in every way. The Forest Service falls under the United States Department of Agriculture. We have 9 regions in the Forest Service. Here in Region 9, our regional forester is Gina Owens. Randy Moore is the current chief of the Forest Service. He started his career in conservation in 1978 with the Natural Resources Conservation Service in North Dakota. Next slide. His Forest Service career includes roles as Deputy Forest Supervisor on the National Forest in North Carolina, Forest Supervisor of the Mark Twain National Forest, Acting Associate Deputy Chief for the National Forest System, and most recently, the Regional Forester in Region 5. As we look at the National Forest System map, we see Region 5 is the whole state of California and Hawaii. On the other end, the 20 states that make up Region 9 are in purple. The Eastern region is headquartered in Milwaukee. Zooming in, Region 9 wilderness areas. We have 55 wilderness areas in Region 9. They include the 1 million plus acres in the Boundary Waters Canoe area. Eastern wilderness areas average around 20,000 acres and are smaller than the large expanses of wilderness found out west. Wilderness areas are seen here in red within the larger polygons of green national forests. Next slide. The Boundary Waters Canoe area became part of the National Wilderness Preservation System with the 1964 Wilderness Act. The first paragraph of the Wilderness Act reads, in order to assure that an increasing population, and again, stand by as I mute a pop-up bubble here. In order to assure that an increasing population, accompanied by expanding settlement and growing mechanization, does not occupy and modify all areas within the United States and its possessions, leaving no lands designated for preservation and protection in their natural condition, it is hereby declared to be the policy of the Congress to secure for the American people of present and future generations the benefits of an enduring resource of wilderness. In a couple of weeks, we'll celebrate the 57th anniversary of President Johnson signing the Wilderness Act into law, as pictured here in the Rose Garden on September 3rd, 1964. The 1964 Wilderness Act defines wilderness in contrast with those areas where man and his works dominate the landscape. Wilderness is hereby recognized as an area where the earth and its community of life are untrammeled by man, where man himself is a visitor who does not remain. A wilderness is further defined as undeveloped federal land retaining its primeval character and influence without permanent improvements or human habitation, which is protected and managed so as to preserve its natural condition, and which generally appears to have been affected primarily by the forces of nature. And you can advance 2 slides. Wilderness areas will have outstanding opportunities for solitude or primitive and unconfined type of recreation. Wilderness areas may also contain ecological, geological, or other features of scientific, educational, scenic, or historical value. With our partners, the Forest Service works to sustain the health, diversity, and productivity of the nation's forests and grasslands to meet the needs of present and future generations, including maintaining the 5 qualities of wilderness character. Since the agency's founding in 1905, partnerships have made significant contributions to our nation's natural resource management. Shining the spotlight quickly here on our partnership with the St. Louis AmeriCorps. Current and future conservation leaders are pictured here with their wilderness heroes from the past. In addition to their campsite and trail restoration work on the Shawnee National Forest, team members participated in wilderness awareness training, were introduced to the history of wilderness, the Wilderness Act, wilderness character, wilderness stewardship, and traditional tools and skills, including working around packstock. Keep up the great work, St. Louis AmeriCorps, ERT. Here is a textbook model for wilderness stewardship. Baseline wilderness character is defined by conditions at the time of wilderness designation. We are legally obligated to prevent degradation of the wilderness resource. Movement down the line. As modern human influence increases, degradation of wilderness character is inevitable without stewardship. This is our primary mandate in wilderness, to maintain wilderness character. We're thankful for your work and partnership to help steward wilderness, whether it's education and awareness in your community or restoration work on a national forest. Your work will help us find the X on the chart and hold us to a report card of improving the wilderness resource over time. You do make a difference. One more conservation leader to highlight, Aldo Leopold joined the Forest Service in 1909, advancing from a ranger to a forest supervisor in New Mexico. By 1919, his thinking had evolved from a narrow focus on forestry and wildlife to an expanded awareness of the need to protect wilderness in America. In 1924, Leopold convinced the Forest Service to protect as wilderness over 500,000 acres of New Mexico's Gila National Forest. It was the National Forest System's first officially designated wilderness area. Leopold was a keen observer of daily life, inspiring his most popular book, A Sand County Almanac, where he introduces the idea of the land ethic. In Leopold's vision of a land ethic, the relationships between people and land are intertwined. Care for people cannot be separated from care for the land. He believed that direct contact with the natural world was crucial in shaping our ability to extend our ethics beyond our own self-interest. We're very excited to kick off these wilderness youth engagement projects that aspire to make similar connections to the land and to the community which we belong. Whether we are near the top of the ladder, stewarding congressionally designated wilderness areas, or near the base, exploring rivers, streams, and parks in your neighborhood, we're grateful for these partnerships. We can't wait to move forward, learning together as your participants move up the pyramid of engagement and grow these relationships. Thank you. Back to you, Jesse.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Next, Terry Heyer, Urban Connections Coordinator in Minneapolis, will share some of the important details about communications and reporting related to our agreements as part of this initiative. Terry.
Thank you, Jesse. And thank you, John, for bringing us and reminding us about this pyramid of engagement. This was put together a few years ago now with Wilderness Inquiry, one of our partners, and you can see a lot of the other federal partners that they work with and brainstorming what this pyramid of engagement might look like. And it's exciting because all the partnerships that we're supporting through this wilderness engagement funding opportunity, they're all over this ladder of engagement. So there are projects that include neighborhood camps that are getting excited, kids excited and curious about their local environment right close to home. And then there's more challenging, as you go up the ladder, you might have overnight experiences where they might visit a camping experience closer to home, or maybe they're a teen counselor at a day camp. And then as you move up the ladder, perhaps then you're actually visiting a national forest, maybe even visiting a wilderness area while you're there. And then as you move further up the ladder, there are internships and summer employment opportunities where John just talked about the AmeriCorps crew that's at the Shawnee National Forest. And then maybe 5 to 10 years ago from now, a few people might be working in the natural resources career field or in the outdoor recreation industry or environmental education. The cherry on the top of the cake. But it's exciting that all of our projects are working with kids somewhere along this pyramid of engagement. Next slide. Next slide. I'll continue. It's talking about another important part of the communication in these projects, as Gina said, is the conversation, is how we're talking with each other. And I wrote it down. We want to bring more people to the conservation conversation. We want these projects to be the start of two-way conversations where we hear from our partners, we hear from youth about why are natural areas important? What are barriers for you to getting there? Why is it important to you? How can we do a better job of making these areas more accessible to you? So we truly do want these projects to be part of an ongoing conversation. And then they're, like I said, they're an ongoing ladder of engagement where some young people might have the opportunity to actually visit a wilderness area where they can see a place where people are second and where nature is what calls the shots. So these are some key communication thoughts that I would like you to keep in mind as we implement these projects. Next slide. So I want you to keep in mind that we have a lot of stories that we can work together to get out. And please work together to do that. We have a hashtag for this campaign, FS Urban Connections. There are lots of other hashtags you might think about using in addition to that. Please remember to have photo releases done either through your organization or through the Forest Service so we can get those fantastic photos out there. Let's work with each other to get this message out on social media. I'll point out here in the middle, you'll see the Twitter handle for the Eastern region of the Forest Service is UFSS_R9. But we have a communication strategy. We have each other's Twitter accounts and our names. So let's get those stories out there in lots of different ways. And then I just want to take this opportunity to point out a couple of key dates to keep in mind that happen annually. One is the National Get Outdoors Month, which is in June of every year. The other one is National Get Outdoors Day, which is the last Saturday of September. And then this year, but every year, Woodsy Owl has a birthday. But this year, it's Woodsy's 50th birthday. And so getting out Woodsy's messages of give a hoot, don't pollute, and lend a hand, care for the land. Woodsy's birthday is September 15th. So those are some key dates we might want to keep in mind, play around, highlight as we move forward. And now I'd like to give you a few reminders about our agreements and the structure of agreements. The first thing I really want you to keep in mind is this funding that we're working together to get these projects done. This is not just pass-through funding. We are equal partners in getting this work done in our agreements. And then in terms of reporting, there's two different systems to keep in mind. One is within your agreement, we negotiated together either a quarterly, semi-annual, or annually reporting requirement as part of your agreement. So there's a performance report that will be required. And then as you are looking for reimbursement for funding, you have to have a performance report submitted and approved before you can get reimbursed for your funding. The other thing to keep in mind is the Forest Service has a conservation education database. It actually includes the Nature Watch program, interpretation, and conservation education, and that all wraps together to be called NICE. And annually, this data has to go into the system by October 15th. So we'd love to have these projects be part of that system, be put into that system, and you'll work with your Forest Service contact to get that done. And the last two things I'd like to remind you about is know your end date, because even if you have funding left in your agreement, you can't spend it past that end date. We can modify an agreement and extend it if there's more funding to be spent, but you cannot spend funding after that end date. So keep that in mind. And then we just would like to remind you that if you're doing brochures, flyers, emails that have images embedded, you need to have approval anytime to use the Forest Service logo. It's normally a very fast process. Work with any of your Forest Service contacts to get that done. So those are just a few key communication and agreements management highlights that we'd like you all to be aware of. Thank you.
Okay, and now at this time, I'd like to invite Gina Owens and Nick Hardy to provide closing remarks.
All right. Hey, thanks, Jesse. Can you hear me okay? All right, I know we're just a couple minutes over, but I think really just appreciate the time that everyone's put to kind of orient to the Forest Service. But then I think, as Gina mentioned in the opening, starting a long and beneficial relationship, and really I think having this back and forth, and just really just appreciate everyone as we get this started. So.
Awesome. Okay, well, if there are no other comments, can't tell if Gina's still with us or not. I don't see her. So, so with that, that concludes our presentation, our meeting for today. Thank you all for your time and working with us on these partnerships, and look forward to hearing. I certainly look forward to hearing more about the work that is happening with your organization. So thank you so much. All right, bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.